Hey friends, in this video we're going to be talking about our literacy skill for the week, which is character, setting, and plot with a focus on cause and effect. And we are going to look at this through the lens of our big literature book for this week, which is Bear Snores On. But before we even get to that, please make sure you have your pencil and a piece of paper, because we're going to need that for our activity after we are done reading our story. But even before we read the story, there are a couple things that we have to remember to help us understand what we're reading. The first term that we have to remember is the plot. Everybody repeat after me and say plot. The plot is what's happening in the story. All right, stop repeating me. So the plot, like we just said, the plot is what's happening in the story. It is the events. So it's what's happened first, next, and last. Our next term to remember is the character. Everybody say character. And the character is a person, animal, or thing that does stuff in the story. So stop repeating me again. So like we just said, a character is someone or something in the story that is doing different things. What a character does helps move the plot along, meaning whatever the character is doing, that creates the events in the story. Our last term to remember that helps build our background knowledge is called the setting. Everybody say setting. And the setting is where things are happening. All right, stop repeating me. So, the setting, just like we just said, the setting is where things are happening. And we can understand and remember that the setting may not always be in the same place. Sometimes things will happen in the story and the setting will change. And we will see what happens. We will see what that looks like as we read our story. Now, these terms to remember, the plot, the character, and the setting, they all build background knowledge that helps us talk about the cause and effect in the story. And there are multiple causes and effects, but it helps us really figure out what is happening in the story and how things are happening in the story. So the cause is when something makes something else happen. Whereas the effect is something that happens because something else made it happen. Mr. Garte, that sounds so confusing. Don't worry, I will explain. So let me give an example. So I have a pencil in my hand. There you go. I have a pencil in my hand and I drop my pencil, right? That is the cause. If I drop my pencil, that is the cause. The effect is that my pencil fell on the desk. I had to drop my pencil first before it fell on the desk. So the cause is that I dropped my pencil and it made my pencil hit the desk. And we are going to be looking at multiple examples of cause and effect throughout our big literature story, which is called Bear Snores On. So the title of our story is Bear Snores On, and it's by Karma Wilson. Illustrations by Jane Chapman. Now, because it says illustrations by Jane Chapman, that tells me that Jane Chapman drew all of the pictures. She is the illustrator, whereas Karma Wilson is the author. That means that she wrote all of the words. In a cave in the woods, in his deep, dark lair, Through the long winter, through the long cold winter, sleeps a great brown bear. Cuddled in a heap, with his eyes shut tight, he sleeps through the day. He sleeps through the night. The cold winds howl, and the night sound growl, but the bear snores on. Now, if we close our eyes for a second, everybody close your eyes for a second, and then put your hands on your head and massage your brain for a second. And if we think and create a picture in our minds of what's happening as we think of the winds howling, we try to listen and create that sound in our mind. And the night sounds growling. Let's close our eyes and try to imagine the night sounds. We can think that it must sound, we can see in our minds and we can hear in our minds that it must be very, very noisy outside of Bear's den. But if we open our eyes, everybody open your eyes. If we open our eyes and look at page 7, the words say it, the picture shows us, Bear is sleeping very, very peacefully. So we can visualize in our minds what it sounds like outside of Bear's den. And we can also visualize in our minds a bear's just snoring and relaxing very peacefully. So I predict that because Bear is snoring through the winds, howling, and the night sounds growling, I predict that Bear is not going to wake up easily from loud sounds. I predict that Bear will actually be very hard to wake up. Let's see. An itty-bitty mouse, pitter-patter, tiptoe, creep crawls in the cave from the fluff-cold snow. Mouse squeaks, too damp, too dank, too dark. So he lights wee twigs with a small, hot spark. Now on this page, I have 2 words that are highlighted. The first word is a hyphenated word, and it is itty-bitty. Everybody say itty-bitty. And itty-bitty is another word for small. So it's a more expressive way of saying that the mouse was really, really small. And on page 9, this other word that I've highlighted, wee little twigs. Wee is another word, and it's W-E-E, that means small. So everybody say, wee twigs. So that is telling us, like, just like itty-bitty is an more expressive way of saying that the mouse was really, really small. Wee twigs is a more expressive way of telling us that the sticks, the little tiny twigs that he used to make the fire, are very, very tiny. And we can kind of see that because the itty-bitty mouse has twigs in his hand. The coals pip-pop and the wind doesn't stop. But the bear snores on. So my prediction was correct. I predicted that Bear wouldn't wake up from any loud sounds or any sounds around him, and Bear is still snoring peacefully. Two glowing eyes sneak peek in the den. Mouse cries, "Who's there?" And a hare hops in. Hare is another word for rabbit. "Ho, mouse," says Hare. "Long time no see." So they pop white corn and they brew black tea. Mouse sips wee slurps. Hare burps big burps. But the bear snores on. A badger scuttles by, sniff snuffs at the air. "I smell yummy yums. Perhaps we could share." "I've brought honey nuts," Badger says with a grin. "Let's divvy 'em up, cozy down, and dig in." And they nibble and they munch with a chew, chomp, crunch. But the bear snores on. A gopher and a mole tunnel up through the floor. Then a wren and a raven flutter in through the door. Mole mutters, "What a night! What a storm!" twitters wren, and everybody clutters in the great bear's den. So this word that I have highlighted here, mutters. I wonder what the word mutters means. I'm going to use context clues to figure it out. And when I use context clues, that means that I read the words around the word that I don't know and try to figure out what that word means. So it says, mole mutters. What a night! If I look at the words that come right after the word mutters, I can see that there's a symbol here that is called a quotation mark. And quotation marks tell us that someone is saying something. And right before we see these quotation marks, we see the word mutters. Using my context clues, I can figure out that mutters is another way of saying says. And so when I read this, I'm going to use the word says instead of mutters. Mole says, "What a night!" Does that make sense? It does. So now we have figured out that the word mutters means says. What other word on page 21 means says? Pause this video and talk with your class. What other word is it? The word twitters. Yes. Now this one's a little different because the word twitters comes after the quotation marks. But if we look at what comes before that quotation mark, we see that it's a whole sentence. So in this first sentence, it says, mole mutters, "What a night!" And then the quotation marks end. So mole is done speaking. And then someone else is speaking again. And the word twitters. If we say says instead of twitters, it should still make sense. What a storm, says Wren. Does that make sense? It does. So we know that twitters is another word to say says, just like mutters is. They tweet and they titter, they chat and they chitter, but the bear snores on. In a cave in the woods, a slumbering bear sleeps through the party in his very own lair. And lair is another way of saying someone's house. Hare stokes the fire. Mouse seasons stew. Then a small pepper fleck makes the bear said that a small pepper flake is going to make the bear do something. I think maybe the pepper will make him do something different. I predict that it will make the bear wake up. What do you think? What do you think the small pepper flake would do to the bear? Well, it says on the page that it's going to do something. What do we think it could be? Let's keep reading. Let's find out if our predictions are correct. Then a small pepper fleck makes the bear... Achoo! He blows and he sneezes and the whole crowd freezes. So we can visualize in our mind what this looks like. The bear sneezes really hard. Achoo! And everyone freezes, just like in freeze tag. Everybody freeze! So everyone is very, very still. They're not moving. They don't know what bear is going to do. They're just watching. Because that was a really, really loud noise that bear just made. I wonder what's going to happen next. Let's keep going. And the bear wakes up. Bear gnarls and he snarls. Bear roars and he rumbles. Bear jumps and he stomps. Bear growls and he grumbles. So in our mind, we can visualize what this scene looks like. Bear is super, super upset. He knocks things down. And even in the video, you guys heard some things fall. That is exactly what is happening in the cave. We can look at the picture and we can see the pot that was sitting there got knocked over. Some of our friends dropped their plates and their cups. And it looks like everyone is trying to run away from Bear. I think that they might be scared of Bear. I wonder what's going to happen next. You snuck in my lair and you've all had fun. But me, I was sleeping and I have had none. And he whimpers and he moans. He wails and he groans. Ugh. And the bear blubbers on. Blubbers is another way of saying that he's crying loudly. Mouse squeaks, don't fret, don't fuss. Look, see, we can pop more corn. We can brew more tea. Bear gulps. Bear gobbles. Nom, 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 nom. He sighs with delight. Then he spins tall tales through the blustery night. When the sun peeks up on a crisp, clear dawn, Bear can't sleep. And this ellipses is telling me that the sentence continues on the next page. But before we even turn the page, let's visualize what's happening on these two pages. So clearly we can see that they're all sitting around the fire, but when we think about the first two sentences, Bear gulps, Bear gobbles, in my mind, I can think about when somebody is gulping or gobbling something down. When I drink water, sometimes I'll just go and gulp the water down. And when I'm really, 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 really hungry, I will just eat food really fast. So I can imagine in my mind that that's what Bear is doing. He's drinking the tea because he wants to enjoy the tea, and he's eating the food because he's very, very hungry. But then it also says he spins tall tales. Now, tales, T-A-L-E-S, that's another word for stories. And the phrase tall tales means that he's telling stories that are not real, but they're probably fun to enjoy. So we can look at the picture and we see that his hand is stuck in the air And when we visualize or we make a picture in our minds of what this looks like, we can see in our minds Bear is talking and his hands are moving and he's so excited, and then this happened, and then this happened. And we can tell from this image that we created in our mind that they are having a very good time. And we can look and see confirmation of that because we can see that Bear is smiling, we can see that the mole and badger are smiling. And so when the sun peeks up on a crisp, clear dawn, Bear can't sleep, but his friends snore on. The end. So here is what we are going to do now. So, you should already have your pencil and your piece of paper. And I need you to set it up with a word inside of a circle. I'm going to draw a circle first, then draw a line to another circle. The first circle is going to say the word cause, and the second circle is going to say the word effect. We are going to look at some different examples of cause and effect in this story. The first example we're going to look at is on pages 8 and 9. And we need to use our background information to help us figure out the cause and effect on these 2 pages. First question is, who is the character on these 2 pages? Right, it's Mouse. We can see that Mouse is here and we see Mouse here. My next question is, on page 8, what is the setting? What is the setting on page 8? Where is it taking place? Well, we see that Mouse is outside. It is taking place outside. So on page 8, the setting is outside. What about on page 9? What is the setting on page 9? Inside the cave. So now we have our background knowledge. We know what characters are on these 2 pages, and we know that the setting has changed from page 8 to page 9. My question is, what causes Mouse to go into the cave and light the fire? What causes Mouse to do this? Well, the cause is that it was very, very cold outside. We can see that it's snowing, and we see that there are footprints in the snow, so he was clearly walking for a long time. And so because it was so cold outside, as an effect, Mouse went inside the cave and made a fire. So on our papers, we should have our papers looking like this. We'll have cause on one side, we'll have effect on the other, we'll have a line with an arrow from cause to the effect. Our first cause and effect that we're going to write was that it was very cold outside, so as an effect, Mouse went inside the cave and made a fire. Pause this video if you need more time to copy this down. Alrighty, let's look at another example. On these 2 pages, who are the characters on these 2 pages? Who are they? It's Badger and Hare, yes, or Rabbit. Hare is another word for rabbit, H-A-R-E. What is the setting on page 16 on this side? Where is the story taking place? Outside, yes, it is taking place outside. What about on page 17? Where is the setting taking place on page 17? Inside the cave, exactly. So now that we know the characters on the page, and now that we know the setting on these 2 pages, my question is, what causes Badger to go into the cave? Why did Badger go into the cave? Well, if we read the page, because I think we might have to read the page to find this answer. If we read the page, it says, a badger scuttles by, sniff snuffs at the air. Ah, so the badger smells something. Then it says, I smell yummy yums. Perhaps we can share. So we know that our cause was that the badger smelled something yummy. And then as a result, or as an effect, because Badger smelled something yummy when he was outside, Badger then goes into the cave. And so that is our effect. So now, looking at our paper, we already have our cause and effect and our first cause and effect that we wrote down. Now we can add that Badger smelled something yummy as a cause, and as an effect from smelling something yummy, Badger goes into the cave. Let's look at another example. On this page here, who are the characters on these pages? There's a lot of characters here. There's Mouse, there's Hare, there's the Wren, there's the Raven, there's Badger, there's Mole. There are all of the animals that came into the cave. What is the setting? Where does this part of the story take place? Inside the cave, exactly. And what does Bear do on this page? What is Bear doing? Achoo! He sneezes. What caused Bear to sneeze? If we think about the story, what was it that caused Bear to sneeze? Well, on the page before, if we remember, it said that a pepper fleck caused the bear to sneeze. So, Mouse was using pepper, right? Remember that Mouse was seasoning the stew. Mouse was using pepper, and it got into Bear's nose. And because the pepper got into Bear's nose, as a result, as an effect, Bear sneezes. So now we have our paper that has our other examples of cause and effect, and we can now add this one to finish our cause and effect paper. We can add that Mouse used pepper and it got into Bear's nose, and as a result, Bear sneezes. Now, let's just talk about this last example. I want us to just talk about it. You can put your pencils and piece of paper down. And we're going to specifically look at pages 30 and 31. Now, on these pages, before we even get to that, let's use our background knowledge of everything that has been happening in the story. My first question is, what happened while Bear was asleep? Pause this video and talk amongst your class. Like, what was happening the whole time that Bear was asleep? The other animals ate food and they had fun without Bear. They had a whole entire party inside of Bear's cave while he was asleep. My next question, when Bear realizes what happened while he was asleep, what is the effect? What does Bear do? And we can look specifically at page 30 for this one. What does Bear do when he realizes what's going on? Bear gets sad and he starts crying. What does Mouse do as an effect of seeing Bear crying? What does Mouse do? Mouse squeaks, don't fret, don't fuss. Look, see, we can pop more corn. We can brew more tea. So Mouse offers to make more tea and popcorn for Bear. Now, in this example, we can see that one cause can have multiple effects, and one effect can be the cause of something else. Specifically, right, because the animals ate food and had fun without Bear while he was in his cave sleep, when he wakes up, he gets sad and starts crying, and then Mouse offers to make more tea and popcorn. So this one cause has two effects. When Bear gets sad and he starts crying as an effect of the animals eating and having fun without him, this black effect is the cause of making Mouse offer to make more tea and popcorn. So cause and effect is very, very important because it helps us understand what's happening in the story and how the story is moving along.